Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hour. Reach Roy at 615-843-2999 or visit roymatlockjr.com. And now, here's Roy.
All right, Roy Matlock here, and we're going to be talking money today. And today's show is going to be about building a plan, and I'm going to start with, really putting you into two phases of life. One is an accumulator, and we'll talk about that. And then also, if you're at or near retirement in the withdrawal stages, we'll be talking through that today. And if you're just visiting or tuning in for the first time, got a couple things that are new. We have our YouTube channel is up, Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hour. And we've got the shows. Not only do we have the podcast, but we've got the shows. We got short clips. You can go to roymatlockjr.com and listen to the podcast, search the podcast, whatever it may be, and just helping you get educated when it comes to your money. But when you're building your plan, I've built my whole system around, helping people with their money, and first and foremost with education and advice. I believe that in anything you do, if you want to get better about it, you got to get more educated. And what you don't know will hurt you. It will cost you. It'll definitely cost you a lot of money if you don't know things about money. And then the other thing is that get advice. How do you get advice? Find a great financial advisor. We do that. We've been advising people for 40 years. And here's what I find is that, anything that you are engaged in, you're going to really get good at. And we're engaged in what we do. And, I go to other people that's what their job is to be engaged in something else. And I tend to delegate things and that I don't like doing, and I delegate things that I'm not an expert in. And then what I'm dealing with all the time is stuff, number one, that if I don't like doing it, I get somebody else, I pay somebody that can do it better than me, more than likely, because they probably like it. And then the second thing is I delegate to people that know more than I do. And so our first step in getting financial independent is learning, getting educated. In today's show, we're going to educate. I'm going to talk about some of the mistakes people make. And then from there, you do a review of your finances. And when we do a review, that's what do you have, what do you owe, where are you at, all that stuff. What do you earn? Are there things out there that are sitting that need to be fixed? We then go to the defense. The defense is, not making mistakes and protecting what you have, your income, your assets. We go on the offense, and that includes growing your money. I'm going to get into that, all the different things I see about that. We then have to place products. Financial products are part of the game, from insurance to investments to mortgages, to real estate, all those different things that go into life. And then you review it and update it. And if you pay attention, what will happen is one day you'll see progress if you start operating that way. I call it 6 components of automatic financial independence. And so what do I see? Well, there's different things that people make mistakes. And during the accumulation stage, I would say the first and foremost thing that happens when it comes early on is that's called procrastination. You just never get started. And I'm going to give you some numbers in a minute on what happens if you don't get started. The second thing is we have to avoid mistakes. All right, avoid mistakes. What are mistakes? Getting in over your head in debt early on, which causes you to delay being able to start doing things. What are other mistakes? I see nothing in the form of a written plan. I remember reading a book called Think and Grow Rich back 40 years ago. If you haven't read that book, just go out to page 36 and look it up, and it's going to tell you how to turn your desires into riches. And it all has to do with having a mindset that causes you to automatically do things subconsciously that will cause you to be successful. All right. So for instance, step number one is you define what your goal is. And your goal is, I like to, in the financial mindset, is I like to look at 2 goals. Number one is my income goal. What am I going to do to make what I make? And then that income goal allows me to plan my finances. So what I want to do is I want to have a certain income goal, and what do I need to do to go from where I'm at to the next income level? So if you're making 60 grand a year and you want to make 100 grand a year, what would you need to do? Ask yourself the question, what do I need to do to go from 60 to 100 grand? Is it more education? Is it a job change? Is it a side hustle? Whatever it may be. So we look at our income, and then the second is our financial independence number. And what is our financial independence number? That's the number, the amount of money that would allow you to stop working forever and be financially independent, living at a lifestyle you'd want to live. And so we come up with that. So let's just say that your financial independence number is 100 grand. I always tell people just multiply it by 20. All right, you need 2 million. 2 million at 5% gives you 100 grand. So your number is that. All right, so we come up with a plan. I want to make 100 grand a year, and I want to have 100 grand a year forever, do nothing money, that's going to always come in. And so we start with that. We have no written plan. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a goal, it's an accident if you hit anything. And I can assure you that it's not going to motivate you if you don't have that. Then we go to the plan. The plan is from the goal to the plan. The plan is, all right, here are 5 things I need to be doing. This is an amount of money I need to be saving. This is the interest rate I need to be getting. All these kind of things come into play. And then we come up with a schedule. The schedule is, when am I going to reach that? I remember in early days, 1986, I put all of my goals on paper of where I wanted to be 10 years later, on income, on where I wanted to be when it came to savings amounts, things like that. And then I had a schedule. So now it's a GPS, goal plan schedule. So we do that. So these mistakes that you make early on, a lot of times are just, you just don't plan anything. You're not putting in motion something that your subconscious will cause you to go reach. And so GPS is the first thing, goal plan schedule. We want to make sure that we have our income goals and we have our savings goals in place. That is a well thought out system, okay, to do this. So we start with a goal, then from there, we'll go to a plan, and then we have a schedule in which we want to do it. So that's going to help us to determine at different interest rates what's going to happen. And so when we come back from the break, we'll be talking about, you know, putting this stuff in place as someone that's in the accumulation stage. Then we'll go to the withdrawal stage. My name's Roy Matlock Jr. If you need help, reach out to roymatlockjr.com. We'll help you get your finances fixed once and for all. All right, segment 2, Roy Matlock Jr., and we're talking money today, as we always do. If you're just tuning in, today is going to be about building the plan, and we talked about in the first segment, recap the goal, the plan, the schedule. 2 important things you need to always be thinking about is what's your income goal and what is your financial independence number. The income goal is, where am I at today and where would I like to get to? How am I going to get there? And we put it on paper. What can I do? Generally, anything you put on paper, if you write it down and you say, hey, I need to do this, and this, it's going to allow you to improve right off. And then our financial independence number, take the number that you need to be able to quit and feel good about life, multiply it by 20. That's going to give you your goal in the amount of money you need. And then we come up with a plan and a schedule as to when. So what we have to do, though, is avoid some mistakes. So here's some of the mistakes. Number 1, living beyond your means. All right, spending more than you make. And let me give you an example. If you want to know if you're spending more than you make, just look at how much you have saved versus how much you owe, and that'll kind of give you an idea. And that has to do with bad debt. Bad debt's things that go down in value, that are high interest rates. Those are, the things that you want to avoid. Good debt, if you have a decent mortgage on your house or you borrow money and you can easily pay it back. When it comes to maybe putting money into a business, it's a different deal. So the second thing that I see is procrastination, not starting early enough. So let me give you an example of what happens. So let's say that you start out and you put in $500 a month, which, by the way, anybody should be able to do that. All you got to do is keep again, not living beyond your means. You got $500 a month. I'm going to show you 2 things that determine financial independence. So 500 bucks a month, if you do it for 40 years, let's say you do everything correct, you're getting 10% on your money and you put it in, you start young, 40 years later at 10%, you got $2.7 million. If you wait 10 years to start, even investing correctly at 10%, you got 995,000. So by waiting 10 years, it cost you two-thirds of the money that you would have accumulated if you wait 20 years to begin. If you do the right thing on the return, 347,000. Now look at this, 347 if you invest 20 years. If you invest 30 years, 995. If you invest 40 years, 2.7 million. Think about that. So what did 10 years cost you? The difference in 30 and 40 years, it cost you $1.7 million by waiting 10 years to begin. All right. So think about that. Okay. Now let's talk about not understanding how to get the rate of return you need. So I'm going to show you a 6% return, which by the way, to get a 6% rate of return, you got to get it out of the bank. It's not, you can't even get that now. So the first thing is time. It costs you, if you're young and get started, the earlier the better. We've proven that. It's the difference in 20 years of 500 a month is 347,000 versus, okay, doing it for 40 years, it's going to be 2.7 million. Now, let's say we don't understand how to get a rate of return on our money. And instead of getting 10, we get 6. All right. So you're side by side with your buddy. A couple things. Everything looks the same to begin with. You're having fun. You go hang out. The only difference is one of you has $500 a month being automatically deducted out of your checking account or out of your paycheck into an investment. All right. The other one doesn't. So you waited 10 years. And if you know investment returns, it costs, you're side by side. One's got 900, the other one's got 2.7 million. That's big difference. But let's say you don't understand where to put the money. Well, over a 20-year period, it's 220,000 versus 347,000. That's the difference between 6 and 10%. If it's between 6 and 10% over a period of 30 years, it's the difference in 477,000 and 995,000. So it costs you 100%. So by having the difference of rate of return between 6 and 10% over 30 years, it's 100% difference in the amount of outcome at the end. All right. If you wait 40 years, the difference is between 900,000 and 2.7 million, or another way you can look at it is 3x by getting a better rate of return. So now what do you learn from everything I'm saying? Number one, procrastination is going to kill you when it comes to your money. You got to do it now. You can't wait until next year, next month. You need to do it now. And then the second thing is you need to understand how to get a better rate of return on your money so you get the magic of compound interest working for you. All right. So now that we've done that, we're young, we're getting started, we're accumulating, or wherever you're at, you're not retired or not at retirement, and you're starting to accumulate money. So what are the mistakes I see? Living beyond your means. Okay. So you don't have any money to save, not starting early enough. All right. The next one is failure to fully take advantage of employer matches. If you have a 401k, it's free money. You want to make 50% on your money. Usually you put 6% in and they give you 3 as a bonus on your matching 401k. I see people all the time not even doing their 401k or their 403b. Also, you get a tax deduction potentially if you put that money in, or if you may put it into a Roth where it goes tax free. The next mistake I see young people make or early on is they chase hot investments. All right. It's interesting to me about Bitcoin. Uh, the people that are the brokest have the most money in Bitcoin. All right. That's just funny. I don't know why. I think I know why. It's because what people think of Bitcoin is I'm not going to have to work and save and put time in for a long period of time. I'm going to get rich. Now, I'm not anti Bitcoin. I'm just telling you that Bitcoin is a piece of it if you want to have a piece of it. Personally, I don't. And I can't value Bitcoin. If I don't know how to value it, why? I mean, And I've got all these internet gurus telling me how, this is the way, or nah, I don't believe it. Anyway, so the point being is I like to be able to value things. I can value a business. If I'm making 100 grand a year and you come to me and my business is paying me 100 grand a year and you offer me 100 grand, I'm going to say, I'm not going to do that. But if you offer me a million, I might consider it. That would be 10 years of earnings. All right. So there. So that's how I do that. We go from there to ignoring asset allocation. That's the 6 or 10%. What does that mean? Well, 6 or 10% is, where are we investing it? And how do we put our money to work for us? And that comes back to when you're in the accumulation stage, you're going to be more aggressive. I like being in growth funds when we're accumulating money. I like to back it down as we get older and at or near retirement. We change our ways because what we're trying to do is we're trying to make our money last. We actually want the stock market to not go down when we're retired. We want the stock market to go down when we're accumulating money. That way we can buy at a discount. So we have different goals on what we'd like to see the outcome is. And so when we come back from the break, what we're going to do is get into understanding professional money management, asset allocation, diversification, different things like that to allow you in the accumulation stage to really get things happening. One more thing while we're at it is not having an emergency fund. An emergency fund allows you to keep from having to borrow money at high interest rates typically. It also allows you to cut some cost when it comes to insurances and things like that. And so I'll get into insurance. So these are mistakes that we see starting out. And I meet with people all the time still. I still do appointments and I just see mistakes and they're all the same. And these are the 10 mistakes that we've been talking about today. My name is Roy Matlock Jr. What we're going to do is keep expanding the business that I'm in, the radio show. We're doing different things to move the podcast out. If you've ever considered a career in money management, or maybe you'd like to have a side gig and learn how from the inside, we have a referral partner program that allows you to come in, get trained by us, and supplement your income, maybe make a career change. Visit roymatlockjr.com, join the team. All right, we're finishing. This is third segment of today's show, and we're talking about the accumulation stage and some of the mistakes that I see. And so we're going to kind of finish it up, and I'm going to give you some ideas on what you should do. All right, so you want to protect your income, and you want to protect your basically you want to protect yourself or just manage mistakes. All right. So here's what we're going to do when you're trying to accumulate money. Number one, get a budget in place. You can go to roymatlockjr.com, download budget forms, and we'll show you how to do that. So what happens is the budget is the steps right off, and then we protect our income and we grow our income. So what we want to do is we want to work on the income, avoid mistakes. How do we work on the income? What do I need to do to go from this point in time that I'm earning to something larger? And secondly, should something happen to me, all right, if I have a family or kids or anything like that, you need to have the proper insurance in place. There's two insurances that you should be thinking about, especially in the accumulation stage. One of them is term life insurance, and you can add something called living benefits to term. That's a new thing now, to where you can actually get up to 90% of your death benefit should you have a chronic critical type illness. So that gives you money while you're still living to get well. And then the other you want to check on is disability income. That should you become disabled, if you don't have access through work, you can buy individual policies. We have a marketplace on all of this kind of stuff. And I'm going to give you kind of an example of how ridiculous it is to not do something like this. If you're young, 30 years, 35 years old, and you wanted to get $1 million of death benefit that could be accessed, we're talking maybe less than $100 a month if you're in decent health. And we have a service that you can go to the website, our website, and within about 10 minutes, it will be issued, and it includes a will and trust, which is a big deal. So if you're, especially if you have children or if you haven't updated your insurance, it might be something you want to do. Visit roymatlockjr.com on that. We also have a marketplace for disability income. So here's what that does. It says I'm protecting my income. And if I protect my income and I grow my income, then all I have to do is automate my savings and I get myself in a great position. And so that's the mindset of going out and in the accumulation stage. Now, let's talk about the different types of investments that you can put your money into. And this would apply to people that are going to be withdrawing money as well as people that are still just in the accumulation stage. So let's start out. And I'm going to give you the one story I've used 1,000 times. No, more than 1,000 times. I've been using this story forever and ever and ever. And it's called Become an Owner, Not a Loaner. And what that means is that what we want to do is we want to own. All right. I think most people will agree that if you work for a company, you're probably making less money than if you own the company, if it's a successful company. Now, of course, owning a company, owning a business is has more risk to it than potentially a job. Maybe not. And the reason I say maybe not, if the economy is slowing down, then you have job risk. But anyway, we're going to talk more from an investment standpoint. So become an owner, not a loaner. So let's begin by taking and opening a bank account. So we open a bank account. We walk in the bank with $1,000. We take the $1,000 out of our pocket. Let's just make it real easy. We have $1,000 in cash, 10 $100 bills. We walk up to the teller and we say, I would like to open a savings account and put this $1,000 in there. We take it out of our pocket. We then loan it to the bank and the bank borrows it from us. And you ask them the first question. If I loan you this money, which you don't call that, you would say, what is your savings account interest rate? And they say 2%. And you hand them your money out of your pocket, you loan it to them. They in turn, the next person in line comes in and they say, hey, I want to get a loan to buy a car. And they say, go over there and talk to the person over there at at that desk, and you tell them you want a car. And you say, what it be? I've got good credit for the most part. What will you charge me? And they say 13%. So, okay, 13%. And then the next person walks in and says, I'd like to get one of those little plastic cards called a credit card. And they say, what's the interest rate? And you say 21%. Okay. Wow. That's a lot. Okay. All right. We got this now. So I loaned it for 2. If I want to borrow from the bank, I pay 13 on a car, I pay 21 on a credit card, I pay 6 on a house, but they have collateral on the house and they make the spread. All right. So if they're borrowing it from you at 2 and they loan it back to somebody else or to you at 13, they make 11. If they do it on a house, they got 6 and they make you buy insurance in case you don't pay the mortgage. And then they have the house, they take it back. So they got collateral. Or a credit card, 21%, no collateral. They get your car they can take back at 13. All right. Who makes the most money, the bank or the person loaning the money? You say, well, the bank. That is very easy to understand. They borrow it 2, they loan it out at 21, and occasionally people don't pay, but they do pretty good. They make a spread. So why not just own the bank? That's the way I would do it. Own the bank. How do you own the bank? You own stock. And there's companies out there. I get up every morning and go to Starbucks. And boy, oh boy, I mean, can you imagine how many clicks at Starbucks is happening every single second? All right. A business that all over the world, somebody's spending money with them. You think you'll make money on Starbucks and you will at 2% at the bank? Well, let's just buy Starbucks. How do we do that? Well, we don't know which ones to buy. So that's when we go out and we hire professional money managers. We call them mutual funds, or we call them, or they're ETFs, which the long and short of it is professional money managers go pick and choose and research the very best places to put your money. And then they use a thing called diversification. Diversification is they go across industries, they go across sectors, they go across countries, they go across small stocks, middle-sized stocks, large company stocks, stocks that pay dividends, international, all this different type of thing, and they get you diversified. And then from there, you go in, you might, in the accumulation stage, have a combination of all of that. I just had someone that they had their 401k. They asked me what I should do, what they should do with it. And I said, well, let's take a look. We got two ways we can do it. We can do a target date. That target date is basically take your birth year and add 65 to it. And then that'll tell you about how long, what your target should be. And they'll manage it for you. And it'll get more conservative as you get nearer retirement. Or you can go out in the accumulation stage and do small, medium, and large companies along with international, divide it four ways. That's typically what I've told people. And that will get you a good accumulation plan: small cap, mid cap, large cap, international. If you want to get a little more conservative, you add a balance fund to it, or you take off the small cap. If you want to get more aggressive, you take off the large cap, maybe that kind of deal. So the long and short of it is there's a way to go and invest your money and have a plan in place. And so, but we understand that we want to have professional money management helping us to accumulate money. I had a lady this week and she said she's buying real estate and she's got rental properties. And I said, rentals are great, but just understand it's not passive income. She said, well, yeah, it's passive rental. I said, no, 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 it's not passive income. Passive income is when you do nothing and someone puts money in your checking account every month and they're managing it. That's what mutual funds and money managers do. If you own real estate, it's great. Buy your rental properties, but you have to rent it. You have to maintain it. You have to advertise, all that kind of stuff, sign leases and things like that. It's fine. It's just not passive. And so whatever you do, you got to get your money growing more than putting it at 2% at the bank. Reach out to RoyMatlockJr.com and get all the information you need. We'll be right back. All right. We're going to finish up this segment, and it's really financial mistakes that you make while accumulating money, and then we're going to get into the ones about retirement planning. And the key basis to all of these things is that you've got to pay attention to the defense and the offense, and you got to get your money growing for you. And let's close out young. You're accumulating money. Always protect your income. Most important thing you can do is protect your income. You want to make sure and protect your assets. That's simple stuff like, we buy the right car and home insurance and we have health insurance and things like that. But our income is the key. That's term life, disability income, that kind of stuff, along with an automated, systematic investment plan. That could be your retirement plan through work, or it can be a Roth on your own out of your checking account, whatever it may be. If you need help with those things, we are fiduciary. We do that stuff. We will implement a plan for you. All you have to do is make sure your money's in your checking account, and we will put the automation in place to where you have professional money managers managing your money. And if anything were to happen and go wrong, we got you properly protected. Now let's go to financial mistakes during retirement. The difference at retirement, it's much more complicated than it is when you're accumulating money. Bottom line on accumulation, let's get you set up into funds and automate it, draft it, make sure if anything happens to your income, we fix it, and you can pretty well handle things. All right, that's mostly it. We got to protect your assets, but that's pretty much the story. Now, when you retire, what are some of the things that I see? Well, people, they overspend early. They're used to having a paycheck, and maybe their income at retirement's not going to be quite what it was. So you got to get a good budget early on, especially because if you happen to be pulling more money out early on and the returns are not good at that time, called sequence of return risk, it can be very damaging long-term to you. The next one is failing to plan for taxes. All right. So when I meet with someone, I look at the different income streams that people have. They're going to have Social Security. They're going to have, maybe a Roth IRA. Maybe they're going to have some taxable accounts. Maybe they're going to have some tax deductible like 401k rollovers, IRA, deductible accounts like that. They may have annuities. They may have life insurance, all this kind of stuff. And so what I like to do is try to figure out how can we delay the RMDs as long as we can, all the way out to age 73. That's meaning when you have to withdraw. How can we not pay taxes on our Social Security? How can we do that and maintain our lifestyle? How do we go about doing that? So there's some ways of doing it to keep you under the number, but also have your cash flow. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I meet you and you are retired and you got Social Security coming in, husband, wife, maybe you got 5 grand a month and you need 8 grand a month. And the first thing we do, we see you've got retirement plans. Maybe you got some Roth IRAs. You got some different things like that. Maybe you got a traditional IRA, whatever it may be. And then we find out that you've got sitting here $100,000 in the bank. All right, it's in the bank. So what I might do is advise you to take the 100 grand and we'll deplete it out over 3 years. Pull out 3,000 a month out of that bank account. But the difference is you're getting 36,000 in income, but you are just withdrawing principal for the most part. You only have to pay the taxes on the interest. So more than likely, it'll be very little interest, even if you're getting 4%, 5% on the bank account. That's only 5,000 a year if you left it in there all year. And because you're withdrawing on it, you're not paying any taxes. So what we end up doing is now we have 3 years that our Social Security wasn't taxed, our Medicare payments didn't go up, and then we might go to the Roth IRAs next. It's tax-free. All right. We might convert some of our traditional IRAs while we're living off of that no income and keep it under. And we have some more Roth IRAs that we don't have to pay taxes on. Our RMDs go down as a result of that. Our taxation stays down. We might even do a reverse mortgage, which would allow us to eliminate our house payment, which would allow us to defer our RMDs again, defer our Roths to where we just let them keep accumulating tax-free. So all these different ways of planning for taxation. Taxation is a big deal. No plan when it comes to income. So one of the big challenges is outliving your money. So what do we do to create an income? I like to always find, we find out what the Social Security is, and then maybe we set up some lifetime income guarantees through annuities. And, my mother's 102. I've mentioned that on the show many times. Best thing about it, she didn't run out of money at 85. And that is a worry. One of the biggest worries I think people have is, running out of money when you're too old to be able to do anything about it. All right. And so we want to make sure that you have enough money that will always be there. So you might have systematic plans, systematic withdrawals. We got different ways to pull from different buckets. All right. I see right now, many times I run into people that are at or near retirement and they're still in the accumulation phase when it comes to the way they've got their money allocated. So they shouldn't be 100% in the stock market, but they are. I had a client just recently. I looked in, 5 different funds, but those funds were not diversified. It was pretty much the same underlying companies. So we want to be, pay attention to not having all of our money in very aggressive things. Typically, when I talk to people when they're retiring, we build a system around about 4 areas. We have annuities for lifetime income. We have money market accounts to capture downside stock market drops potentially, or to use it when the market's down. We have bonds, which are more conservative, and we have stocks to keep up with inflation. So we do that. What's another mistake I see? Too much money sitting in the bank. All right. So if you've got money sitting in the bank right now, more than an emergency fund, all right, more than 6 months of income, that kind of deal, chances are you should do something different with it. And when we're in a stock market where the market's rocking and high and all that kind of stuff, I typically do something called dollar cost averaging to get you into the market. So we're not going to take your money and throw it in a lump sum into a high market. So we'll do that kind of stuff and we'll bring it in over time. And so I see these things. These are, you know, no income strategy, failure to plan for taxes, overspending early, too much cash. Another one is healthcare. What do you do about healthcare? Well, you've got one of the biggest fears, in addition to running out of money, is going in the nursing home. All right, and what would happen then? Everybody ages. As you get older, you need more help, that kind of thing. And so, making decisions on your housing. Are you going to downsize your house? Are you not preparing, for things like that. And so sometimes downsizing the house means, you know, being able to free up cash to do stuff with. We see a lot of times I refer a bunch of reverse mortgages. I'll give you one example of a client that had an $800,000 house. It was more than they could really handle. It was big and stuff like that, but it was paid for. And we were able to uh, advise them. They sold that house. They bought a condo for 400,000, and they had two options when they did that. They could keep the cash and keep it and pay cash 400,000, and then they would have 400,000 invest, or they could do a reverse mortgage. And in this case, they put about 200,000 down on the reverse mortgage, and they had no payment. And then the other 200, was cash. All right. So 200 down, 200 in reverse mortgage, and that gave them 600,000 to do something with, and we turned it into income. And so that would be a way to convert your equity out. Another reason that people will do reverse mortgages is to convert Roth IRAs into Roths, and they can also use it as a way to have money and availability of money for should they have some type of long-term care thing. Another long-term care way of doing stuff is the annuities now. They have riders. All right. Insurance policies have riders that will help you in the event that you were to go into a nursing home or something like that. Another thing we see is not updating the beneficiaries, forgetting to change things, estate documents, all that kind of stuff, failure to keep the wills and beneficiaries up to date. So we try to meet with people and make sure everything's set up right, to where it will be an easy pass to the next generation. You also want that will avoid probate. That's things that we see, happen all the time. No plan for surviving spouse. All right. So let me give you some examples of what we run into. A surviving spouse, they lose one Social Security. They may lose pension, whatever it may be. So you may have permanent life insurance in place that would be available for the remaining spouse. And so all these different things come into play when you're at retirement. So let's review. All right. So we start out, we're accumulating money. We come up with our GPS goal plan schedule. We protect our income always. We do that with term life insurance. We buy term life insurance. Term pays for a period of time. It's the most amount of coverage for the least amount of money. You can also purchase disability income. A lot of times you have that through your work. You might consider something with critical and what's called living benefits on your life insurance. We do that. We then apply time and consistency, better rate of return, professional money management. When we retire, we start slowly turning it back. So we're not as aggressive. We start looking for different income plans. We look at our taxation. Where are we going to pull our money from first? We start looking at final expense, probate, beneficiaries, all these different things. And we have a plan in place. How does the plan work? Number one, we start with education and advice. Number two, we do a review and we look at what you're at, where you're at, what you're doing. Number three, we create a defense. Number four, we create an offense. Number 5, we go and we look for products that meet what you need. And number 6, constant, ongoing reviews and updates. Today's show has been about building your plan. My name is Roy Matlock Jr. If you need help, reach out to roymatlockjr.com. Do a phone call. We'd be happy to work with you. Thank you.